Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator. And today is going to be part one of a two-part tutorial series for the Cessna Citation Longitude. That's right, we are finally ready to start doing tutorial series for this aircraft. I can't thank the community enough for all the information they have provided me from real-world experience that truly got me over the hump and helped me get through some information that just wasn't available. So stick around guys, because this is going to be a really awesome couple of episodes. All right, so as I said previously, this is going to be a two-part series. First one will be releasing tonight. The next one will be releasing tomorrow evening. So that way you guys have time to do a little bit of practice, starting up and shutdown. It's actually a little bit more complex than what we thought. There is a very specific procedure, and we're going to be going into extreme detail, as best I can anyway, with many of the procedural steps that are involved with getting this aircraft airborne and some of the things that you want to be on the watch out for. So we're going to take a look at some control settings. We're going to take a look at the time where we may need to use tooltips, and then we're going to also take a look at SimBrief, Navigraph charts, you name it, everything that you're going to need to fly this aircraft. We are going to be flying this aircraft from Boston over to Minneapolis. This, by the way, guys, will be following the Overkill's Cessna Citation Longitude guide. The guide is very close to nearing completion. Here it is, guys, so I'll take you through a couple pages here, let you see a little bit here and there. We're not going to go through everything, but I walk you through installing a couple of mods that you guys are going to need: the flight model improvement, as well as the G3000, G5000 suite from Working Title. We go through everything from entering the flight plan, breaking down what a flight plan is as far as the route, whether it be the airways, SIDS, stars, you name it. We're breaking through all of that. So stay tuned, guys. What we're going to do first is we are going to jump into SimBrief, get our flight plan created, and then we're going to come back into the aircraft. All right, so jumping on to SimBrief here, guys. If you do not have SimBrief, I highly recommend it. This is a free subscription. There is no charge to use it, and it is an extremely handy flight management tool for creating flight plans, especially when using IFR dispatch. So we're going to go to dispatch system, create new flight plan. As far as the airline, you guys can put whatever you want. This is a business jet, essentially, so, we're not going to really be flying any for any commercial airliners. So, I just make one up. I think that was, what was OLA? Huh, I don't know what I don't remember what the L was, but, Overkill something air travel, I think is what I was doing there, airlines. But anyway, pick any old tail number, however you want to do it, flight number, tail number, totally up to you. We're going to be departing from BOS for Boston and going to, there it is, KMSP for Minneapolis, St. Paul. On the aircraft airframe, we're going to come down to C700 Longitude. On reserve fuel, you want to make sure we have at least 45 minutes on board for an IFR flight. All right, so cruise profile, we want to be cruising at Mach 0.82, so that's what we're looking for there. Fuel factor, we're going to leave it as is, as we already have the reserve fuel calculated up here at the top. Let's see here. Let's move on down a little bit more. The climb profile. So we're going to be first departing. We're going to be using a takeoff speed of 185 knots. Immediately after takeoff, we'll be accelerating 250 knots till we reach about 10,000 feet. Once we exceed through 10,000 feet, we'll be accelerating to 270 knots. And then shortly thereafter, probably around 30,000 feet, we'll be moving up into Mach 0.80 as the aircraft continues to accelerate. Okay. And then cruising again at Mach 0.82, 0.84, a little bit of variance there between us and the guide. So let's move on down. Flight time, we're not worried about that. Departing runway. Now, I'm going to set this as it is in the guide for now. Okay, so some of the things that we do today may be slightly different from what the real world looks like today, but we'll just have to check it out and see as we go. And I believe we are doing 3-0 left for our approach. Now we're not going to actually get airborne today, so this part isn't critical. We're going to get to takeoff today, or we're going to get through the taxi portion, line up with the runway, and that's the point that this video will stop. Okay, because there's a lot to that coming into it. Extra fuel, again, we already have our reserves calculated, so we're not going to worry about that. Passengers, you can leave that at auto. Cargo, we can set that at auto. That's your choice. And actually, I think we're going to set that at 0.3. Now, we're also going to come up here, and we're going to set our cruise altitude to 440. That's 44,000 feet. And let's verify we have the same departure that I had. We're going to be using the Highland 5 SID, going up to the Highland transition, jumping over to Hannah via direct to waypoint. From Hannah, using that as our entry point onto the Q8 or Quebec 816 airway, exiting at Kelty, using Kelty to jump onto the Quebec 812, jumping off at Zohan and going direct to Idiom, using Idiom to jump onto the Muscle 3 Star for our arrival into Minneapolis. All right, so there is our flight plans. Come up to the top and hit Generate OFP, or Operational Flight Plan. Now from here, it's totally up to you guys. You have all of the information we entered up in the top sections. 0 fuel weight, takeoff weight. I don't necessarily focus on these too much, although that's pretty close to what the sim will show, if I remember correctly. We have our routing, dispatch marks. Now, this payload cargo limited by max 0 fuel weight, which means that I might have selected too much cargo. So let's come on down and let's see what we've got on the block fuel. Got 7,918 pounds, which is interesting because it's a little higher than what we had previously, but that's all right. And then we can come down here and let's take a look at the payload. Where are we at here? Looks like cargo at 0.1. So they reduced our cargo. Oh, it's because we have an extra passenger on board than what we had previously. That's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go print PDF preview. And I like to use this. It's simpler to have up on the screen, second monitor. You can download this to your phone via email, however you want to do it. Just makes it easier to have it on hand for this aircraft, as it doesn't have a default way to look at it. All right, so with that in mind, we've got our flight plan ready. Now let's take a look at the startup procedures for the aircraft and get into programming the FMC. All right, so now that we're back in the cockpit of the aircraft, I do want to remind everyone, and the links are down in the description below, I am using a flight model adjustment to this aircraft as well as the working title G3000 suite. Okay, it does affect the G5000 as well and adds many, many features. If you guys are not using the working title G3000, G1000 updates, I highly recommend them because it truly opens the systems up to much more realistic behavior. The other thing we're going to do is first we're going to set our weights and balances in the aircraft. Now, I'm not going to be using the sim brief numbers. I'm going to be using what I have in the tutorial guide. That way you guys can follow along with this tutorial. I'm going to switch it over to pounds. And we have, oh, first let's set our weights. Let's see, what did we set it at? 7734 on the fuel, so just about there. It's 53%, yep. And let's see here, on the weight, we're looking at 2597 pounds. Oh, close. Darn it. There we go. All right, and then our center of gravity, we're going to be looking at 33.9. Put it right in the center there. All right, so we got our weights and balances set, we got our fuel loaded, and we got our payload on board. So now let's move into the next section of starting the electrical power. All right, so first let's take a quick sweep around the cockpit here. We want to make sure that the parking brake is armed and set, flaps are up, and we want throttles at idle, spoilers are retracted. And now we will go ahead and start some electrical power. Let's clear this. I tried to create some custom views that would work for you guys here. I'm not sure how that one got over there. Oh, I know. Hang on a second. Ah! There. Goodness gracious. All right, so first step is we want our standby power on. Batteries 1 and 2 on. And we'll be using external power as it is available. All right, the bus tie, we want to make sure it is closed. All right, so how the bus tie works, and I got this explained to me and I was very grateful for it. you have two different buses. You have a left and a right side bus. Okay, whenever you're using the APU or the external power, it only powers one of the buses. Okay, so if you have this open, only one bus will be powered, therefore only half the systems will have electrical power. When you push close, it closes the circuit connecting the two sections, allowing power to transfer to both sides. All right. We will turn this to open, essentially separating the connection between the two buses once we get the engines on and the generators are stabilized. All right. So now that we have our electrical power on, we'll check the ECAS page for any warnings or concerns. Everything's obviously nice and clear there. And next we can go ahead and get our ATIS information. I will go ahead and use the ATC ATIS for today. So we're going to bring up ATC, tune Boston ground, grab our ATIS. Now I just have it scrolling, I don't have the audio on. Winds 236 at 15, visibility 10, sky conditions, few clouds. Come on, I'm just interested in the altimeter really. (2986). We're going to ignore the runways. We're going to be taxiing to 15 right when it's time to taxi, and then I will make sure tomorrow, or for the next segment I should say, the wind is set according to what I need it to be for the guide to be accurate. So altimeter at 2986 is what we're looking for. So we're going to come down here and set that 2986. All right. And then we will also simulate that we have contacted clearance and gotten our ATIS information, or our transponder code. So we're going to click on transponder. We're going to turn it on for now. Select the code. And let's say we got 0635. And hit enter. Transponder is set. And actually we're going to want altitude reporting. We'll turn traffic awareness on as soon as we get up to the runway. All right. All right. So now let's go back to the home page. And other thing to be aware of is the standby altimeter is connected with the primary altimeter in this particular version of the aircraft. I think this is a simulation bug. You should be able to rotate this separately, but they are conjoined here. So just keep that in mind. This one and this one will affect both screens. All right. At this point, if it was a night flight, you could adjust your lights. I mean, you can do that at any point once you have electrical power. Let's go ahead and go up top though. And at this point, we can turn our wing lights on, tail floodlights if you needed them, passenger safety and seatbelt signs if they were operational, and we can arm the emergency exit lights. And at this point, we are now ready to start entering in our flight plan. Okay, to enter in the flight plan, first let's take a look at it real fast, because there's a couple things you want to be aware of. In this current version of the G3000 update by working title, if you have a transition point, so here is our SID, standard instrument departure, and then we use the Highland transition. Okay, if the Highland transition was also the entry point, for example, this airway here, so direct to Hannah was missing, there is a bug that you would want to make sure you enter in the route, which is everything in orange, before you enter in your SID and star. However, since we have a transition point, then direct to another waypoint, we do not have to do that. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like here and try to remind you guys here in a minute. But let's go ahead and get on into the flight plan. So the first thing we're going to do is go flight plan. We're going to add our origin, and our origin is Kilo Bravo Oscar Sierra for Boston. We're going to add our destination of Kilo Mike Sierra Papa for St. Paul and Minneapolis. Okay, you can see both those destinations are here and now entered. And then from here, we're going to go back one page and we're going to enter in our procedures. And we're going to go to the departure first. Boston is where we're coming out of. We're going to go to the departures list and we're going to find our departure today, which is the Highland 5. Now there's no transition points on here. You can see here is the sequence. So we are currently set to, let's go ahead and change that to 15 right as I want. Change our runway there. Runway 15 right, we're going to be heading on final course heading of 150 as we're rolling down the runway. Go immediately over to Fox, then to Boat, here, Marb, and then Highland as we see here. So if we bring this back up over here a second, you can see there's Highland. And so these are all the waypoints in between. These are all the waypoints that are a part of the SID, okay? Now, at this point, you can hit preview if you'd like and show on map. I'm only going to do show on map for today because later on we'll talk about the Navigraph integration. I'm trying to show you guys, for those of you who don't have Navigraph, that we would keep that simple. So here is our SID route here. So here's us coming out, and there's the Fox, Boat, here, Marb, up to Highland. All right, so now we're ready to continue on. Now you could do one of two things at this point. So first thing we obviously need to do is hit load, okay? And then now we can go back and we can do one of two things. You can continue on and enter in your star and your approach, or if you wanted to, you could enter your route. Now we're gonna go ahead and just continue with the procedures, get those all done, and then we'll put the route in between it. So we're gonna go to the arrivals page, and here we're using the Muscle 3, as we discussed previously. Okay, and our transition point, let's take a look at what our transition point is going to look like. We're going to pick our transition point today. So let's bring up KMSP, bring up the book. This is Navigraph here, and we're going to be looking at the star, find the Muscle 3. Okay, now remember I told you guys that we were using Idiom. Idiom is on our flight plan right here. We're going to fly direct to Idiom after we leave Zohan. Okay, and I want to show you guys what the transition is. What that transition point is, it's the point at which you transition from your route onto your star. Okay, and so here we have Idiom, and you can see here's the Charlie Echo Whiskey Delta Alpha. I don't know what the heck that would be, so I'm not going to try to say it. But just so you guys have that visual reference of what this is all going to look like as we come in. All right, so we need to change our transition and find Idiom. There it is. And the runway we're looking for today to come down in on is going to be the ILS 30 left. So runway 30 left. And again, you could preview if you wanted to see that, but we're just going to go ahead and hit load of this segment. And then we're going to hit back again and now talk about the approach. Now the approach at this point, we're coming off of the star and onto the approach to land on our designated runway. So first we're going to select our runway and method of landing, which is going to be the ILS 30 left. There we go. And again, let's find our transition. So let's go to the approach and find 30 left. There it is. And this can get a little crazy here when you're looking at it, so bear with me for a second. Remember, this is where you want to think about the relationship between Boston and Minneapolis in this case, or basically your departure and your arrival. You know, we know that we're coming in from the southeast, okay? So we can come in, we could probably pick up Giku if we wanted to, but I'm going to be using Hasty today, as that's more, I feel like it's going to be more of a direct line into where we want to go on to runway 30 left. Okay, this one down here, Hapton, I feel like could be a backtrack, but it's probably sixes on that point. Either one of these, probably six half dozen of the other, honestly. But we're just going to use Hasty as I feel like it's a good straight-in approach for what we're looking for. Okay, nice easy one. So let's pull that off, and we're going to go into our transition and select Hasty. And again, if you wish, you could preview it. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to hit load. Now, we don't want to activate it, obviously, until we are coming down for the approach. Okay, so we're done with our procedures. Now we need to enter in the rest of the route. So we're going to go to flight plan. And what we're going to do here is very simple. We're just going to scroll down until we find add en route waypoint. This is how we know that we're ready to get, this is the first location to add our waypoints. Now, let's take a look at the route again, as this part can be pretty critical. Well, not that it can be, it is. So give me a second, let me pull that up on the screen here for you guys. So our first location is from Highland. We're going to be going direct to Hannah. Then we're going to be using Hannah to join the Q816, exiting at Kelty, Kelty joining the Q812, and then on to Zohan direct to Idiom. Direct to Idiom, remember this one, because this one's going to get a little tricky. Not tricky, just something you want to be aware of. So we're going to go add en route waypoint. Now you can see Highland, and it has an asterisk. You can do multiple direct waypoints, okay? It has to be direct. It has to say DCT here in this particular situation. But you could eliminate multiple waypoints as long as, so if it, for example, if this was direct to Hannah, direct to Kelty, direct to Zohan, we could type them all in, separating them with an asterisk. Okay, but we want to just go ahead and do the Hannah. H-A-N. You know, and I'm going to make a mistake on purpose. I want to show you guys something here. So it should be H-A-N-A-A. I did H-A-N-N-A for a reason. We're going to hit enter. This, as you can see, it was saying that there are duplicate waypoint duplicates. You always want to watch for this. Okay, so this, for example, is up at the Northwest USA at 1,500, almost 1,600 miles away. Okay, the whole flight isn't 1,600 miles away, I don't think. So be watchful for those kind of things. Use this. Make sure you guys pay attention to this all the time. Don't be too quick to jump on something. And again, it shows us where the other two are. Obviously, they're off continent, so we're not worried about that. But watch for this because it can make a simple mistake and save you some time. So let's just go back again. We obviously know that's wrong. And we're going to go H-A-N-A-A. And now we have Northeast USA. We know that's right. Hit enter. Boom. Now this is where we start looking into loading airways. Now this is a really simple process at this point. So we're going to click the entry point. The entry point to our airway Q816 is Hannah. So we're going to click on Hannah. We're going to hit load airway. There's our entry point. Pick the airway we want to jump onto. The Quebec 816 is the only option. And then where are we exiting? We're exiting at, this one was Kelty. And there's Kelty. Okay. And then you can also sort your airway list and everything else by alphabetical order if you wish. I just leave it as is and scroll down typically, but totally up to you. Just you have that option. And then for those of you who don't understand what an airway is nothing more than like a freeway or a highway that you have on the ground but up in the air. And you have a low altitude set of airways and a high altitude set of airways, okay? And then think about your entry and exit points as your on-ramps and your off-ramps, okay? So let's hit load airway. Now you can see the airway comes right here, is displayed down below, but it shows as collapsed. Now what collapsed means, why am I going the wrong way here? There we go, thank you. Now what collapsed means is we can expand it, for example, and you have a couple different options. You can expand just this airway or expand all the airways that are currently, you know, in the program here, or collapse all of them. In our case, we're just going to hit expand. And all it's doing is showing you all the sequences. So these are the waypoints that are on the Q816 airway that we are going to pass. So again, the exits, right? The exit ramps. We're going to pass these three and then exit at Kelty. And then you can click back up here again and collapse the airway. Makes it nice and compressed. Makes it easier to read so you don't have this huge long flight list. Okay, so we're doing another one. This time we're using Kelty as our entry point. Going load airway, select the airway. We're jumping onto the Q812 this time. Hitting exit, and we can sort. And this time I think we are exiting at Zohan, right? Yep. So scroll to the bottom here. And there it is. And hit load airway. All right. Now, here's this last one where it becomes something that you want to watch for. Idiom is our next waypoint. We are supposed to fly from Zohan direct, so no airway, we're just going to point the nose at it, to Idiom. You don't have to add it here, okay? Idiom's already here as our transition point. So whenever you see that, if this is the transition, if your last waypoint is the transition onto your star, okay, you don't need to add it. You can simply just call the flight plan done. And hitting done here doesn't seem to do anything. I don't know if that's still functional or something we have to worry about at the moment. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and just select home. Now we can also go to the flight plan. Actually, we can go to flight plan options and we can hit show on map. Now this isn't as effective as a view as some of the others because you can't change anything. You can't zoom in and out or anything like that. It just gives you a bird's eye view of what we got going on. Now you can sort of assess a few things. You can see that we probably got about 75 miles here, 75 miles here. So we're probably looking at 5 1/4, 5.5, on 500 miles or so for our total trip. But it is something that you can still use to watch for. For example, if we had one waypoint that was going way off screen or way out of bounds, then again, that would be something that we'd want to go back and look at on our flight plan to see if we made a mistake. Okay, so just a couple of tips there. Let's go ahead and turn that off. There's our map. Go back to the home page. And so our flight plan is now complete. So now we're ready to move on to the next section. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is figure out our performance numbers, meaning we need to figure out our takeoff trim, and we need to figure out our V speeds. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull up the speed bugs. Now these speed bugs are generic and they are wrong. So for our speed bugs, well, first let's figure out our trim. And there's an awesome little chart here that you guys can look at and go ahead and do our configurations with. And so the first thing that we need is our center of gravity. Remember, it was 30.79, as we see here, okay? And actually, I think I put 33.9, which is wrong. Get back here. Hang on a second. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Where did I get that? Oh, no, I was right. 30. There we go. That's what you wanted. The max. Center of gravity is 30.79, okay? So, taking that number, you can see here, just about 30, a little bit above it. We draw it down to here. You have options of flaps 1 or 2 for takeoff, but we are looking at 4.5 degrees nose down on the trim. Now the trim gets a little tricky in the aspect that if you were like me and you absolutely despise the tooltips, unfortunately with this aircraft, at least temporarily, you need to turn them on. So I'm going to show you guys how we do that. We're just going to go to General. We're going to go to Accessibility. Cockpit tooltips, flip them on real quick, go to apply, go back, and then now you can see that we can see our trim setting. This is the only way in this particular aircraft at this time that we can see the trim setting. So unfortunately there is no other option. So we're going to set it for nose down. Oh, kidding me, we have to roll it. All right. We're looking for 4.5 degrees nose down. I'm just mousing over it like this and using my mouse wheel, pushing it forward. Oop. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, at this point, and then I just go back in and I turn the tooltips back off. Because that's the only part that you need it for. It sucks, but it's just the way it works. Unfortunately, it does not show on the ECAS page. It doesn't show here on the elevator configuration. And actually, none of the control surfaces do, unfortunately, for the elevator, excuse me. So even if you pull back and forward on the yoke, it doesn't adjust. So just something that we have to get on past, but hopefully that's something that will be fixed in the future. And then finally, the next thing is setting up our V speeds. Now, this part is pretty simple. So again, at this point, we're just going to use this chart here. Now you can see I've got it boxed. This is our total weight down here, 33,720 pounds. So we fall into this category here. Now you could get really crazy with it, do your math, and actually figure out what the total would be. But I just stay within the chart here. So we have V1, the speed at which the aircraft can no longer be safely stopped. The takeoff must happen regardless of any emergency. You must take the aircraft into the sky. VR, the speed at which we start pulling back for rotation. V2, the speed at which, if in the event of an engine loss, the aircraft would continue to climb and accelerate if only one engine is lost. And then VFTO, basically your maximum takeoff speed. By the time you hit 185 knots, you need to be off the runway. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to start damaging the aircraft and turning into a big ball, burning fire going down the runway, which is never a good thing. So let's not do that. Okay, so... And then it has your runway max. So basically what this is also saying here is that in order to be at this weight, operate at these speeds, we must have a runway longer, either at or above 5,800 feet in length. Okay? All right, so let's set those speeds in. I'm gonna come back down to our FMC, or TSC, excuse me, touchscreen controller. And we are looking at V1 for 121 knots. And we're gonna put that speed bug on. Actually, we can turn them all on. And then we have 122 knots for rotation, 131 knots for V2, and 185 knots on VFTO, maximum takeoff. Okay? All right, so those are the performance numbers complete. We have our speed bugs in now, and so now it's just a matter of getting through the engine start process. All right, so before we get everything rolling on the engine startup, let's start taking a look at a couple things here. So first we're going to set our initial climb altitude. Today we're going to be looking for 12,000 feet. takeoff speed, we're going to be looking for, when you set the speed from FMS over to manual. There we go. And we're going to be looking for 185 knots in the box. Okay. For our heading, we can center it. Ironically enough, we're actually on the runway heading, so that works out nicely. And again, we want to make sure, actually, come back down. Want to make sure parking brake is still set, wheel chocks have been removed, cabin door and curtains are closed, passenger briefing is complete, seat pedals and seat belts signs are locked and set, ECAS page is clear of warnings, recog lights are set. Check outside the aircraft, verify there's nothing behind us other than the obnoxious APU in front of us. Okay. And now we can come up top. So, beacon light's going to come on. Or the anti-collision light, excuse me. Come on downstairs and let's start taking a look at our APU. We're going to take our APU here and switch it on over to start. Coming up to the ECAS page, you can see the APU starting. We'll be looking for 100%. All right, we got 100% on the APU. Take the generator switch, give it a reset, and then flip the APU generator on, at which point we can now terminate external power. With external power disabled, we can come on back to the engine panel here and start taking a look at starting our engines. Let me move our camera up a little bit, make it easier for you guys. We're going to open up the right cover, engine cover here, go into the run position, close the cover, hit the start button here, come back up top, monitor our ECAS page for any engine warnings. All right, with engine 2 now on and stable, we can move on back. Again, I'll bring this up and start up engine 1. Again, cover open, run position, engine starter. And engine 1 is now beginning to rotate. All right, engine 1 now at idle and ready to roll. So let's come back on down to, oops, which one is it? Ah, what are you doing to me here? One of these days I'm going to figure these out. There we go. Gosh. And then I move the mouse like a dork. Okay. I swear I'm going to get my crap together. All right. So left and right generators to reset. Left gen on. Right generator reset. Right gen on. APU generator off. Bus ties open. And we can now shut the APU down. So go here. APU to the off position. At this point, once again, verify flight controls are free and clear. Speed brakes are retracted. Flight instruments and avionics are set. We have altitude set, initial heading set, flight speed set. We need to change the the CDI over to the FMS. So we're going to come down here to the pilot touchscreen for the PFD. Go to nav source and change it to FMS. Now aligned with the autopilot system for flight. And from here, we are ready to begin our taxi out to the runway. Also at this point, if you did need any anti-icing, you could arm that as well. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and taxi to our runway. We'll get the aircraft ready for takeoff, and that's where this video will hang for now, as tomorrow will be just as long as we walk through the takeoff procedures and the approach and landing. So we're going to come downstairs, release that parking brake, turn on our taxi light, and we're good to go. Going to start adding a bit of power. I will tell you this aircraft does not like to turn at all on the ground, and I think that is more of a handicap with Microsoft Flight Simulator than anything else. So like this turn is where we need to make another turn. And that's going to be a little difficult, again, because of the lack of turn radius. So I am full rudder here. Come on, baby. She's doing okay. Come on. There she goes. All right. Wasn't too bad. You got your ground speed here. I know it's a little small for you guys. That's at 8 knots. And the reason I'm going so slow is this is our entry point right here. It's going to come up on Bravo. We got over 10,000 feet of runway. We got plenty of runway, so we're just going to come in right here. And again, another sharp turn. Come on, sweet girl, come around. Come on, you beautiful bird. And at this point, we are going to go ahead and hold short on the runway here. I'm going to set the parking brake for just a moment. Makes it easier. And then come up top, and we'll start walking through the rest. So, actually, flaps, we need to set those. Flaps 1 for takeoff is what we're going to be using for today's flight, according to our chart. Speed brakes are retracted. Auto spoilers or ground spoilers armed for the event of a rejected takeoff. Trim, remember we already set that to -4.5 degrees. So nose down 4.5 degrees. Anti-ice, we won't be needing it today, at least at this point. Well, actually, you know what? I just realized that we're using, and we don't have the weather. What did it say? We can check 80s. Oh, it was 10 degrees. So actually we will want anti-ice. Disregard that. Let's put some anti-ice on. So we'll throw the anti-ice on. Pitot heat, definitely. And then left and right engines we'll throw on as well. Alright. V-speeds, again, already displayed and selected in the speed bug menu. Nav source set to FMS. Speed knob is set to manual. And crew briefing is complete. And now we can turn on our traffic avoidance system as well as our weather radar if you choose. So we're going to go to the transponder and go to traffic avoidance only. And go ahead and go into the home position. And now we are ready to take the runway for takeoff. So guys, stay tuned for part 2. It's going to be just as long, hopefully just as detailed. Forgive me for sort of bouncing around a little bit. I'm always nervous when I do these videos, these actual tutorial videos for the first time. So for a little bit of the jolting around, forgive me guys. It's been crazy. Plus, I'm a little eccentric at the moment anyway, as we are getting ready to hopefully buy a home this week. You know, just lots going on, so forgive me. Anyway, I hope you guys, again, enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. If you have any information to add, please remember, I accept all comments down in the comments below. And then I will see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for part 2, which will be releasing tomorrow night.